Hello guys and welcome back to Sunday Vibes. We've got rid of the freckled one for a week and we've brought in the B-Tech Peter Crouch. It's Will from Sporf. Now let's kick things off straight away, move on from the shit banter. Our first question comes from @OneSpursNation and he's asked, lads, what players need to leave their current clubs in January in order to better their careers? Patrick Van Straten, kick us straight off.
I was hoping you wouldn't come to me. I think Michy Batshuayi should probably get a move.
You've been championing this for quite a while, haven't you?
He's really good. He was absolutely amazing at Marseille. Like, played on the wing in the season Bielsa was there and Gignac was up front. Then played as a lone striker the following season. I think he definitely got over 20 goals in the league. And he can run the channels. He's an intelligent player with the hold up. He could bring other guys into the game. He's obviously going to waste at Chelsea. Every time he's played, he does seem to score or at least create chances for his teammates. I think he's still 23, 24. And I don't know, I just think that if I were Everton, I'd be looking at him. If I were a club that needed an out-and-out striker who was able to kind of play a variety of roles, then I think Michy Batshuayi is the guy I'd be looking at. And I think if you offered Chelsea 40 mil, yes, they're a rich club, but I'm not sure you can say no to that for a backup player.
Yeah, Everton I think could be a great destination. They're
Yeah,
in dire
definitely.
need of a pacey striker who can operate up front and on the flanks, aren't they? What about you, William?
I was thinking even Spurs though, do you know what I mean? Harry
Yeah.
Kane gets injured. I mean, Vincent Janssen had his time, didn't do anything. Who's
Or
there?
Dortmund as well.
Dortmund.
Like
yeah.
a Dortmund, if Dortmund need to think about the days after Aubameyang, he's 28 now, he's quite reliant on pace. If he were to go next summer, then actually Michy Batshuayi would be a great replacement for him, pretty much ready to go, I thought.
Yeah.
I saw in the news this morning that Arsenal are close to signing Dortmund's director of football.
Sven.
Or I'm not sure if that's his specific job title, but I probably should have read it more thoroughly.
He's their chief
but
scout.
It looked quite boring.
He's their chief scout, it's called Sven Mislintat, and he was the one who fell out with Thomas Tuchel last season. So if you're an Arsenal fan hoping that we'll hire Thomas Tuchel, which I am, then that does not look
but a
too
crossover
positive.
there.
But
apparently
Bayern tried
Bayern
to hire him.
Yeah, I was going to say Bayern tried to get him and he turned them down.
Yeah, they tried to get in they tried to make him their chief scout, and they've got a very very highly regarded scout called Meshka. They wanted to make him their technical director, and he said no both times. So if he comes to Arsenal, that'll be pretty good. They'll be able to buy really good players who will then misuse.
Yeah, but you have to work with Wenger for the next 3 or 4 years. What about you, Will? I know your player's a little less glamorous, but
Yeah, it's a bit
worth
more.
a mention nonetheless.
It's traditional English. I've gone for Jack Butland,
Okay,
a
interesting.
man with the World Cup coming up. He's currently surprisingly not Gareth Southgate's number one, which still staggers me to this day. Probably in the top 3 of shot stoppers in the Premier League. Is that behind De Gea?
potentially.
It's not
That's
unreasonable
totally
shout.
unfair.
And for someone like Liverpool, crying out for someone, a big number one in between the sticks.
Yes.
I think Jack Butland needs to get away from Stoke. He's been there for like 5 seasons now. Learnt his trade, came up to the Premier League, but needs to get away.
He's been a bit unfortunate on the international stage. Every time he seems to break through into the first team, he suffers some sort of unlucky injury, doesn't he? Didn't he break his finger this time around when he was set to start against Germany?
Broke his finger against Germany. He obviously had that injury against Germany in the game, when the famous, get it on DVD now, England 3, Germany 2, fantastic game. But yeah, I think when he moved from Birmingham to Stoke, I was like, I'm a Birmingham City fan. He left and I was like, that's a negative move, but he'd learned his trades in the Premier League, knows what it's all about now, established goalkeeper, needs to be number one for Russia for me over Joe Hart.
I agree with that.
Needs to make the move, I think.
Well, I've gone for someone who's a little bit more glamorous than Jack Butland. Sorry, Jack. It's Gareth Bale. Now, apparently, Real Madrid have put him up for sale for the tune of £65 million because of his latest injury. It's the straw that's broken the camel's back, the camel being Florentino Perez. Apparently, he's out for 4 weeks after a decent start to the La Liga season. I think he started 4 games and scored 2 goals. But now he's out again. And he's approaching 29.
Yep.
I think Real Madrid are looking to cash in on him. He obviously cost them in the region of 85 million, plus a mammoth investment in terms of wages, which I believe stand at 290k a week. So, given that, it looks like Manchester United would be his likely destination.
Yeah.
Now, do you think they should part with £65 million for a guy who he does have an outstanding record in 150 games? I think he scored 70 odd goals, he's got 40 odd assists, but he's now missed 79 official matchday squads, I think. Do you think it's a worthwhile investment? Do you think it's a Jose Mourinho signing?
I mean, I do think he's a Mourinho signing. Like, Mourinho's traditionally liked kind of big target men who can act as kind of auxiliary strikers in the box. He likes to play directly. He likes guys as well who can kind of create out of nowhere in the final third. Like, what Mourinho normally does is builds a really rigid defence, I think, and then lets his attackers kind of do their thing. And Bale's going to do that. The problem, if he's there for 65 million quid, I think that's fine. I've seen 85 million, and I actually think that's quite a big difference. I think that would make him potentially ungettable for somebody like Spurs. Man United do seem the most obvious target because Chelsea have so much talent. They're really good at talent acquisition. Whereas United, I think Mourinho will just pay whatever it takes to win this season. So if you said to him, you can buy Gareth Bale for 65, 85, whatever, this season, and you'll have a really good shot at winning the league, he'll always go for it. Whereas other clubs, they want to build to the future. I mean, Spurs, in a way, I could see why Spurs would do it, because Spurs, at the moment, as good as they are, I still think a title is relatively unlikely, and the acquisition of Bale might make it possible. And,
Bit of a catalyst.
you want them to win a title under Pochettino. Like they basically need to do that in order to kind of like validate this whole enterprise. You know.
I mean, my question would be, if he was to go to Manchester United, Will, do you think his output would be significantly more than someone like Anthony Martial if the young Frenchman was given the minutes? Do they already have that player, that explosive winger, on the bench and they're just not using him?
It's a tricky one, isn't it? Especially with all the games coming up, going into the business end of the season, or the Premier League, Champions League, and you can't really sign someone for 65 million and be a rotation player. Like, if Gareth Bale's coming to play, I don't know, 65 million pounds on someone that's not guaranteed to get through the season in terms of injuries is normally a ridiculous and ludicrous investment. But
and they already have someone in that form, don't they?
Yeah.
Zlatan Ibrahimovic,
But
who is costing them a massive amount of wages to be a rotation player.
I don't know, 65 million doesn't seem to be a lot these days, does it?
True. And also, you think my issue as well though with Bale is that I suppose it's basically like kind of Davinson Sanchez plus Moussa Sissoko, like from Spurs' point of view. Like that sounds quite reasonable to me. But
and they overpay for Sanchez.
True, but then I don't know. He looks good so far. But it's one of those things as well where you look at Bale's chances created, and I think it's about 1.4 a game, and like that's okay, but it's not spectacular. And then you start to worry what will happen when he loses his explosiveness. You know, like can he still function? Whereas a player like Di Maria, who's also a guy we could mention as somebody he needs to move in January. Di Maria was always an outstanding creator. You know, he was producing kind of triple that in terms of chances created per game. And those are the sorts of things that tend to last as you get older. Whereas just beating a man on the dribble, that's not going to carry on forever. And that's what I worry about with Bale. Can he adapt to a loss of kind of athletic potential?
Di Maria, of course, contributing to around 30 goals in his first season in France. I think since then, his highest return has been 13. So is he experiencing a little bit of decline as well? Would he be a bit of a gamble? I mean, apparently, he was him and Draxler were made available for 30 million in the summer, weren't they?
Bargain,
which
that.
would have been an absolute steal, although they both would have demanded very high wages because, of course, Barcelona were linked with him for a very short period, weren't they, as a means of replacing Neymar, which I don't think would have been a bad signing by any means. But here's a little stat to end this section on. Benzema, Bale and Ronaldo, the BBC, haven't started together for 200 days. I think if you're Real Madrid, this makes sense, doesn't it, to cash in on him?
Yeah, definitely.
But what do you think? Let us know in the comments below. Next question comes from Swagato Sarkar. Had to get one of his questions in because he asked about 40 off 2 different accounts. I love that dedication, my friend. And he's asked, lads, if you can choose any one of them, I will read them out in a second, for your favourite team, who would you choose and why? Now, the following 8 options are Mbappe, Dembele, Asensio, Pulisic, Weigl, Donnarumma, Ali and Sane.
Jesus.
Big list.
You're a Birmingham City fan, aren't you?
Yes, I
Peaky
am.
Blinder.
Yeah.
Who would you have for the Blues?
Well, ideally I'd go for all 8,
Yeah.
but that's not the option. So
That's cheating, mate.
I've gone for Kylian Mbappe just because I was thinking of sitting in the Tilton Road on a cold winter's night, and what's going to excite me? Kylian Mbappe running at the defence, causing carnage. He could probably win the championship on his own.
I mean, if in doubt in the championship, pace.
Yeah, exactly.
And Mbappe is fast, isn't he?
And I've gone down the Football Manager route as well. I've gone, right, we bring him in, shirt sales through the roof, commercials on point. Then I'm thinking, where's he going to bring a family up? He's coming to Birmingham. It's a bit different to Paris. The shopping's just as good, the ball ring's great. some fine restaurants in the mailbox.
Jewellery Quarter's lovely, mate.
Jewellery Quarter's great for a night out. And then if you're going to bring your family up, he's only 18, could potentially have a 20-year career at Birmingham City. Get yourself to Solihull.
Solihull?
Yeah, beautiful place. Beautiful
the Paris of the Midlands.
Some have said,
So-
yeah, just you, but it's a great place. It's fantastic.
What about Patrick Van Straten at Arsenal? A little bit easier to place one of those superstars in that team.
I'd probably go Dembele or Asensio. I'm also tempted by Pulisic. I want all of them really, but
You're a greedy man.
I think I'd go. Oh God, Dembele. I go Dembele. Basically, what Arsenal need is somebody who can replace like huge creative output because they're losing Ozil and Alexis. And Dembele is that guy. He's already shown it in multiple leagues. He can beat pretty much anyone dribbling. He's insanely fast. He's that little bit older than Mbappe and Pulisic, which I prefer because sometimes when a player's kind of just 18, just 19, they have a couple of seasons before you can actually start playing them every game. Like that's quite a lot to ask of somebody just before they hit 20. Dembele and Asensio are that little bit older, so I think they're probably slightly more resilient. And I don't know, like Ousmane Dembele, he's so two-footed, he's so fast.
You have a little obsession with him, don't you?
I just think he's an amazing player. Like somebody alerted me to him when he was at Rennes, and I watched him a little bit towards the end of that season. I mean, obviously I couldn't have seen this kind of explosion from him, but he was just so exciting. And then went to Dortmund and had an absolutely insane season. I was just like, he's so good to watch.
Sold him for 15 million euros, Pato, because they need stringing up by the ball sack.
Well, isn't this famously a dodgy deal?
Yeah.
Isn't this like some shady shit?
Probably best to keep our mouth shut.
Yeah.
The question you've got to ask yourself though, if you're sat at the Emirates on a cold winter's night and he's running at the defence, would he get you out your seat?
I mean, I don't get out my seat for anything.
Pat doesn't go to the game, mate. He watches it from the comfort of his own home. He's a proud armchair fan.
Would he get you off your chaise longue?
Yeah, sure.
There you go.
While I was up, get some grapes, you know,
Yeah.
get a glass of port. who
Nobby's
knows?
nuts.
Maybe a few more
But, like,
nobbies. Yeah. I mean, any one of them could slot into the Celtic side, couldn't they? The consummates. We've already got a Dembele, who's world class, so I'll discount him. We've already got James Forrest, who's just as good as Leroy Sané.
What about Weigl to partner Scott Brown?
We've already got a midfield metronome. You've just said his name, Scott Brown. Tommy Rogic, a world-class attacking talent. Kieran Tierney, probably the only world-class talent in our team, should be on this list. You know, that's the company he should be keeping. But no, I'd go for Kylian Mbappe as well. I've just seen his game take on a whole new dimension in Paris. His movement, which I didn't appreciate before, his movement is insane. The way he just, I mean, it was pretty good at Monaco, wasn't it? He swapped out with Falcao pretty judiciously. Them two work well together. I mean, that much can be said. But the way he's just said, okay, playing with Cavani and playing with Neymar, this needs doing, I'll do it. A bit of selflessness. His work rate's top. He is lightning fast. He would score triple-digit goals in the SBL. And he would get me off my seat if I made the 7-hour journey to Parkhead, Will.
And it's cold up there.
I assure you, and it is cold.
It is cold.
I mean, I might spill my Bovril, but
Do you have a Bovril?
cup of gravy, mate. Sign me up.
No,
But who would you
Bovril.
have in your team? Let us know in the comments below. And what's your favourite flavour of Bovril? Next question comes from Abdel Amara, and he's asked, lads, who will win the highly coveted African Player of the Year award? Now, for me, it has to be PEA of Dortmund fame, Aubameyang. Had a sterling season, didn't he, last season? 31 goals in just 32 starts. Won the German Cup, the first African player to top the Bundesliga scoring charts. I think he finished the season with 40 goals. Now, this is a guy who was a late developer as well, wasn't he? Didn't play a single game, I don't believe, for AC Milan. Went on loan to France, fared really well at Saint Etienne, and he's gradually worked his way up. So I think he deserves it. Probably in the, not twilight of his striking careers, because he's only 28, 29, isn't he? But this is probably his pinnacle. So if he's going to win it, it probably will be now. Can you think of anyone who can contest his bid for it? Will, jump in.
So I'm going to go for Sadio Mane. It's not a question of who I think probably you're right, Aubameyang should win it, but in terms of people I've watched and I'm going to use it again, got me out my seat. Sadio Mane, direct, attacking, just everything you want in that attacking winger, kind of striker mould, pacey, and just something very different in the Premier League at the moment. And someone is, in terms of individual honours, I'd love to see him win it, but who I think should win it should be probably Mo Salah, just for kind of carrying Egypt on his back, taking them to Russia. That surely is the pinnacle for any player, taking your own nation to a World Cup.
Well, yeah, people in Egypt have started to call them Salah's Egypt, isn't it? Haven't they? Sorry, which isn't the most creative nickname.
Well, he was
pretty
the top
apt.
scorer in African qualifying, wasn't he? I mean, but then let's talk about Alex Iwobi. Why are there no Zimbabwean players in here? That's what I want to know. Where are they?
Nigerian players?
No, I'm talking about Zimbabwe now.
Oh, Alex Iwobi. Oh, we just moved on. All right,
Yeah,
fair.
come on. Look, there should be a Zimbabwean player in this every year. A Zimbabwean player should win it every year. Don't know why they don't. It's disgusting, really. But I'm going to go for Naby Keita, which I assume everybody will expect. But look, he got 8 goals, 7 assists in the Bundesliga this season. Those would be pretty good numbers for an attacking midfielder, and he's not an attacking midfielder. He put up more tackles and interceptions than N'Golo Kante this season. Like, huge defensive output, can dribble past pretty much anybody. Like, it's hard for me to look at his output this season and see what more I could want from a central midfielder. The only central midfielder in the world, I think, who does everything in the way that Keita does and potentially does it better is Thiago Alcantara. He's the only guy I can really think of. He's just
Verratti, maybe?
But even Verratti though, he's not as dynamic. He doesn't do as much defensive work.
His attacking output as well isn't high.
Yeah, he doesn't have the same number of goals and assists, and that's in a much more dominant team. I mean, this is a side that got promoted and immediately ended up second in the Bundesliga, and I think Keita has to be responsible for most of that. Him and Forsberg, that axis has been unbelievably productive, and I don't know, he's so young as well. Like you said, Aubameyang is 28. I think Mane, is he 25, 26?
Yeah.
So these are guys who are in their peak years. Keita is 22, I believe. He might have just turned 23. And so he isn't even at peak production yet. So God knows what he could turn into.
Is there not questions over his disciplinary though? 3 yellow cards, 3 red cards already this season?
Yeah, but I think there's also part of the way that Leipzig play. So much is asked of him that I think it's inevitable that that's the guy who ends up making the tactical fouls. That's the guy who ends up making the last-ditch challenges.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I do think he's a little bit raw in that regard, but I also kind of think, I feel sorry for him because he's quite often taking the card for the rest of the team.
Yeah, I think last season he was completing 3.5 dribbles a game, wasn't he? Which is only 1 fewer than Eden Hazard in the Premier League, which is crazy. And it, again, points to that unique skill set that Pato was talking about. However, it does take the start of this season into account, doesn't it? Salah's been on fire at the start of this season. I think he's contributed to more goals for Liverpool than anyone in his first 10 games, right? It may have been 10, may have been more, but I mean, and that's including the likes of Fowler and Owen. So he's readjusted to life in the Premier League emphatically, hasn't he? But Aubameyang, 8 goals in his first 6 games. I really think this is his to lose.
Yeah.
But guys, we want to know who you would opt for. Click the poll just above Will's head over there. Probably cutting off half his face. Big lad. Last question comes from James McNally, whose handle is @Wasteman21. Get that sorted. And he's asked, would Paulo Dybala be a better fit at Manchester United than Antoine Griezmann? Now, I believe he's asked this because Pogba Instagrammed a screenshot of him FaceTiming Dybala and hashtagged it Agent P, which I imagine means that he's, undercover trying to sign players in some sort of comical way. But would he fit into Manchester United's system, Pato? Because for me, Griezmann is a more Manchester United sort of player, which I'll elaborate on after you dive in.
Yeah, I think he probably is. I mean, Griezmann can play wide, he can play behind the striker, he can play as a centre forward. He's got a much higher defensive work rate, and historically we've seen Mourinho kind of gravitate towards those sort of players. Like when he ditched Mata at the 10 and put Oscar there when he came back to Chelsea. That's because Oscar's defensive output was much higher. Oscar, in a way, had sort of the work rate of a central midfielder playing at the 10. And I think that Griezmann, he's much more likely to track back. He's obviously adept at leading a counter press, which he's been doing under Simeone. Dybala's less effective out wide, and Dybala also needs freedom in the final third, and I don't think that Mourinho is going to give that to him. I think, plus Griezmann, he's 26. Like that's sort of the age that Mourinho tends to get guys at. He likes people who are going to come in at peak production and just do exactly what he expects them to do. And so I think Griezmann makes more sense to me. Plus, with a buyout clause, I think he'll actually be cheaper. Yeah.
And Dybala is currently worshipped at Juventus, isn't he, Will? 11 games, 12 goals so far this season, 2 assists. His output has gone through the roof. Do you think it'd be a smart move for the young man?
I mean, if he did come to Man United, profile goes through the roof again. I mean, he's under that spotlight in Juventus, but I think when you go to Manchester United, it's just something else, as like Martial and everyone has found out. But in terms of out and out strikers, I mean, it's got to be Griezmann in terms of that physical presence. Obviously, he likes that with the likes of Lukaku and Ibrahimovic, and someone like Dybala. I mean, still got a lot to learn, so maybe, and especially a lot to learn, like you were saying, Pat, in that kind of number 9 role. He's very much a number 10 at the moment, and the physical demands of the Premier League, I think you've got to go Griezmann.
Yeah, I think a lot of people at Juventus, a lot of fans I've spoken to, see Dybala's future in that number 9 role when Higuain leaves. And if he came to Manchester United, the presence of Romelu Lukaku automatically forces him out wide, doesn't it? Because Lukaku hasn't necessarily, just carry on, consummate pro, he's got that flexibility in him. Whilst Griezmann has. Griezmann, we've seen at international level, can play off the striker. Giroud, he can play in that number 10 role, he can play as a sort of defensive forward, can't he? So I think he does offer greater flexibility, the little Frenchman. Although Dybala,
big question is,
though, class, isn't it?
Who's got the better celebration? I mean,
I hate both.
It's got to be Griezmann.
That celebration.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
You're not a fan of that?
No, I think it's stupid.
Not a fan of that?
It looks like a knob.
Wait till we.
First time my wife saw Griezmann celebrate a goal, she said, "What a dickhead."
I mean, I think his bonnet is currently worse than his celebration. I don't know what. He's got roots, hasn't he? Sort it out. Got like 100 grand a week. But who would you guys opt for? Let us know on Twitter. So that's it, guys. Sunday Vibes done and dusted. Thank you very much for joining us. And if you want us to answer your question next week, stick it in the comments below, somewhere near Van Straten's crotch. I have to reference it one every 2 episodes. Will,
yes.
What's going on sport?
We're about to shoot a video with you guys, so click the link in the description down below. Come and have a watch of that, and come and subscribe.
Yeah, Pato, what about 90+1?
90+1 facts. We've got 90+1 facts about derbies that went out on Friday. So everything you could possibly want to know about North London, Real Madrid versus Barcelona, the Milan derby, every major rivalry in world football.
All the good stuff. And as always, guys, don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye.